What's up, guys? Matt Brown and Brett Collson here for TheLines.com, PlayPicks.com. Going to run through these early Week 10 NFL lines here. Week 9 in the NFL got a little wacky. Monday Night Football came down, depending on where you got the line. Now, 47.5 was the total for the majority of the day over at DraftKings, but at FanDuel, it was 48.5. So depending on where you got Monday Night Football, a weird little scoop and score at the very end got you over or blew your under ticket. So wacky way to end out Week 9, and we get going here in Week 10, Brett, and it's pretty crazy to think that we are now well over the halfway point here of the NFL season. It was just, seems like it was yesterday you and I were saying, man, I can't wait for NFL to get here, and then here we are entering Week 10.
Yeah, when you get swallowed by the NFL like we do, I mean, we're in it every day throughout the season. It's just a blur. I mean, it moves so fast, so it's hard to kind of like step away from it and look at it from like an outside perspective sometimes. But it's important to do when you look at these lines, because I mean it's week to week and things are happening so fast.
So if you take a look right here, guys, on the screen, this is just a standalone article that you'll find on the Lines Week 10 NFL line spreads, totals, and betting guide. That's written by Juan Blanco here, does a lot of great work for the Lines. If you just want to see nothing but the odds, of course, just head up here to the little tab that says odds and click on live odds, and that'll take you to nothing but the odds feed. But wanted to show you this article existed if you wanted to take a look at it. And of course, the odds feed is embedded in here in the article anyway. So we'll go ahead and get down to it. Of course, you can toggle as well between New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and West Virginia lines. But for our purposes, we'll just use New Jersey. It'll have DraftKings, it'll have FanDuel, it'll have PointsBet. And of course, those are three of the big major players over there in New Jersey. So Brett, let's kick things off here on Thursday with the Chargers and Raiders. Ones across the board, except at FanDuel, where you can get the you can still get the Raiders at plus 1.5. Now that is juiced, so how long that lasts, maybe even by the time that you watch this video, it won't be there any longer. But at least it is there as we are taping this right now, which puts it into teaser territory if you are a teaser player, but you would have to open something up on Thursday and lead it into Sunday there. So just something to keep in mind if you want to go there. But Chargers coming off a big win that you and I'm so glad we just stayed away from that game. I had a misread on that one. No idea. I no idea that the Packers were just going to lay a complete egg against the Chargers there. And we were right, at least, when we said it was going to be a sea of green over there in LA. It was, we thought maybe 60 to 70% green. It was like 80% Packers fans in that stadium, but the Chargers got it done. And of course, the Raiders continue to look way better than we thought this year.
Yeah, this is the game I had circled last week with the look ahead at Raiders minus 1.5. At the time, I still felt like the Chargers were being overvalued. And then they went out and just blew doors off the Packers, showing that this is a very different defense when Melvin Ingram is healthy and playing at an elite level. He changed that team last week. So, I mean, the line opened here, Raiders minus 1 Sunday night. It has flipped as of Tuesday morning. Like you said, FanDuel minus 1.5 after the Chargers took some early money. Not all that meaningful movement through zero, but worth keeping an eye on where the money is coming in throughout the week.
Detroit Lions and Chicago Bears, and I know this is probably going to be one of those more confusing lines of the week for people out there. The Bears favored over the Lions here, minus 2.5 over at DraftKings, at PointsBet, and 888. You can see the 3 has showed up over here at FanDuel, but if you want that 3, you're actually getting having to pay the juice on the Lions, and you're actually getting money here, plus 105 on the Bears if you want to take the 3 here. Brett, I imagine this is going to be the head scratcher of the week for a lot of people. This Bears team has looked absolutely atrocious. This Lions team has actually looked pretty darn good. I mean, even in losing efforts, this Lions team has looked pretty good.
Yeah, you got two teams coming off losses here, but it's important to know here that the line moved through a key number off the look ahead of 3.5. The market just hates Mitch Trubisky more and more every single week, and rightly so. This offense has been a disaster, but there still might be some line value on the short number after a truly embarrassing performance against the Eagles. This one's definitely interesting. Yeah,
this one's pretty interesting. I mean, of course, this is like a prime teaser target here. Yeah. Imagine this is going to be one of those games. And I'll go ahead in a new window here and pull up DraftKings sportsbook as well, as we're looking at the lines kind of simultaneously so that we can look at these totals as well. Sitting at a 42.5 total here. So this is kind of a prime teaser target. If you guys are teaser players, this Lions team, you could tease them up to 8.5 in a pretty low total game here. It's pretty prime target here. And Brett, if you've watched this Bears team over the last several weeks here, especially with Trubisky under center, them beating anybody by 9 points at this thing would, and I'm talking nearly anyone in the league, them beating anybody by 9 points at this point would surprise the hell out of me. That's for sure.
I mean, you kind of have to hope for like a strip sack or a pick six, right? And against Stafford, I just don't see that happening.
Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals here. You can see no surprise, 9.5 and even 10 over here at PointsBet in favor of the Ravens, heading on the road to this Bengals team coming off of a bye and making a quarterback switch. If you guys didn't listen to the podcast this past week, the Bengals will be making a quarterback switch. Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, heads to the bench. Enter Ryan Finley, a rookie. And listen, this is the Bengals. Listen, Brett, I think that this is 50% them maybe moving away from Dalton, and also more 50% them trying to go ahead and secure the fact that they're sitting in the driver's seat now for the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, that of course. And I think they also want to see what Ryan Finley has too. I mean, I think there is one other option if you don't want to go quarterback in the draft. You and I have talked about this off air, but there is that Chase Young guy is sitting there at possibly number 1 as well. So I mean, if you've got something here with Ryan Finley and he plays well here in the second half of the season, I guess you would go that route. And I think they want to see that too.
Pretty interesting here that this thing is not, at least currently, sitting at 10 at DraftKings and FanDuel and 888. I mean, you would have thought that the early money would have come in and just started pounding the Ravens in this game. But I think people are probably fairly sharp on this, where it seems like, all right, now this Ravens team might come into this a little bit overvalued because of what they did in front of the national audience against the Patriots here. Now, this is a different situation. They're not at home. They are on the road. You do have a team at least coming off a bye, so the Bengals should be a little bit healthier. And actually, I guess we should go ahead and mention that at least the plan is, and of course this is early Tuesday morning that we're taping this, guys, but at least the plan is for AJ Green to be back for the Bengals as well.
Yeah, this one has got quite a bit of movement early on. Line opened 10.5, moved a couple points Monday before settling here around 9.5. Like you said, Bengals starting Finley. This is one of those spots where I like to target the overreaction to a backup quarterback coming in to replace an already inefficient veteran quarterback. And it's worth noting that the Bengals are coming off some rest too. So they've had an extra week to get ready with this rookie quarterback. I love that decision, like we talked about. This is kind of an enticing spot with the Ravens stock at its peak against a Cincy team that might feel a little rejuvenated with a rookie quarterback coming in and possibly AJ Green coming back, like you said. So I think this game is going to be on my radar.
45.5 is the total here. And I think one thing that we can both agree on is the Ravens are going to score some points on the Bengals, but unless Finley just goes out there and is a complete disaster, this Ravens defense can also be had as well. So 45.5, this total in this one, certainly something I'm going to dig into a little bit further and pay attention to, because that total could certainly end up on my card. Your Buffalo Bills, 3-point dogs on the road to the Browns. I believed in your Bills this past week. The Bills did make my card this past week and did cover for me, and I'm so glad that they did. Otherwise, I would have had a losing week this week on my picks. But the Bills and Browns here, the Browns coming off yet another very confusing loss. You and I talking about this offline before we started recording. The Browns ran 30 more plays than the Broncos did. They won the turnover battle against the Broncos. And typically when you see teams that have controlled the ball and ran this many more plays and also win the turnover battle against another team, that usually equals a win for that team, and that is just not the case for this Browns team, who continue, and I should say not the team, the coaching staff, namely Freddie Kitchens, continues to go out there and make baffling decision after baffling decision, and I think that this team is getting hamstrung by this coaching staff. I mean, listen, should the Browns be the championship contenders that everyone wanted them to be before the season started? No, you and I said that wasn't going to be the case. But should they have a couple more wins than they do? Absolutely.
Yeah, this game is funny. Like, on the surface, this looks disrespectful to a 6-2 team, but the Bills haven't really played anybody. They haven't proven anything yet. They've just gone out and handled their business against 6 bad football teams. The combined record of the teams Buffalo has beaten this year, 9-42. And 4 of those wins came from the Titans. So the other 5 wins, those teams have a combined 5 wins. We have yet to see if this Bills team is legit. I'm not sure winning here would prove it against this Freddie Kitchens Browns team, but Cleveland does have a lot of talent. They can run the football. Buffalo's run defense has been a sieve since they lost Harrison Phillips on that interior. So this one, I don't know. This one looks pretty fair to me. The line moved from 2.5 open to 3 on Monday. Definitely watch where this one is moving on and off the key number all week.
An incredibly low total of 40 in this thing. I mean, this is pretty much typical for Bills games moving forward, I think. A pretty stout defense and a fairly inefficient offense. And so unless they're playing, kind of the offensive juggernaut teams, which the Browns have proven not to be so far, these low totals are going to be kind of the norm here, I do imagine. So we'll probably have some more thoughts on this total here as we move on into the week and really dig into the lines here. But, I guess I'll put it this way, Brett. I understand these low totals in these Bills games, but I also believe in a game like this against the Browns. I don't know. As we sit here on a Tuesday morning, I kind of start to lean towards the over a little bit because I actually think the Browns will have some success, and there's no reason to believe that the Bills won't have some success against the Browns as well.
I think you're right. I think this Bills defense is a little overrated right now. They've looked leaky the past few weeks, and the Browns run the football really well. So I could definitely see the Browns scoring some points here.
Keep on scrolling, and this is no surprise here. The Chiefs and the Titans off the board at most places. I guess it is up at FanDuel. At least it's what our odds feed says here with the Chiefs favorite 3.5, which leads me to believe that they think that Patrick Mahomes is going to be under center there for the Chiefs. And I imagine if he was anywhere relatively close this past week, Brett, that he probably will be back under center here. But tough for you and I to kind of speculate on a game where we don't even know if the reigning league MVP is going to be under center or not.
Yeah, this FanDuel number is definitely assuming that he plays. It looks likely that he will. Definitely some interesting line movement off the look ahead of 4.5 if this line does, if it does open here at the rest of the books. Considering KC shocked a lot of people by beating the Vikes, and the Titans got steamrolled last week, moved a point the other way. So take that for what you want. We'll see where this one actually does open once we get more information on Mahomes.
Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints here. Of course, the Falcons are probably the most, I would say, would you say the most disappointing team in all the NFL this year?
I think that's totally fair, yes.
Probably the most disappointing team in all the NFL this year.
I mean, I guess you could argue the Browns, but you and I weren't all that high on the Browns to begin with, so I would have to go Falcons.
Falcons 13, I know, guys, 13-point dogs to the New Orleans Saints. Just absolutely crazy. Actually, both of these teams are coming off of a bye here. The Saints and the Falcons both did not get the benefit of playing another team on that had to play a week before when they were coming off a long rest, unfortunately. So both of these teams coming off of a bye will play against each other. Of course, Drew Brees did actually return before the bye here for the Saints, which is pretty notable because if he felt good enough to go before his even bye, he did get a whole extra week here to fully heal up, and then probably should enter this game at as close to 100% as you could imagine for someone that had a pretty major thumb injury through the course of an NFL season. You can see 13s across the board here as we go over and flip and take a look at where where we're looking at as far as the total in this thing here. 51. I think that's pretty fair. This Saints team the offense has continued to roll. And the one thing about the Falcons, Brett, is as disappointing as they are scoring points. They just can't keep the other teams from scoring.
Yeah, that is for sure. But this line also tells us that Matt Ryan is not likely to start. So, how effective is Matt Schaub going to be against this, I would say, close to elite Saints defense? It'll be important to watch the practice reports on Thursday and Friday for Matt Ryan. The Falcons, they did get that extra week to recuperate, but like you said, so did the Saints. So if anything, this is an advantage to the team with the far better coaching staff, and that is New Orleans.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine this play here, we could probably see this thing get to 14 if Matt Ryan gets officially ruled out and everyone knows ahead of time. I think this thing could probably go ahead and make it all the way to 14. So I think if you like the Saints regardless, maybe go ahead and get in on this 13 because I can see this thing moving to 14 for sure. Giants and the Jets. They are sharing the same stadium, but it is technically a home game for the Jets here. Giants, the quote-unquote road team, 2.5-point favorites, 2-point favorites over at PointsBet. Looks like this thing could be on the move. As you see, it looks like the Jets. It's so funny how this game. I mean, I don't know if we can actually get a true read on this game, Brett, from the lines, especially over in Jersey, because this really is like the absolute game of regional bias here.
Yeah, the look ahead on this was Jets -1.5, and it's moved 4 points since Sunday. The question is, are the Jets really this bad? Are they bad enough to move the line this much? They were, you could say they were the worst team last week, and that's typically a team that I like to target because the market typically overreacts to that side. So this is a game I'm going to be looking at probably way more than I should just because of that just insane line movement with a Giants team that just got destroyed last night.
43 is the total in this one. Seems about right. I mean, that's kind of a middling total there. And, look, the Giants offense at times looks like it's competent. And then same thing with the Jets at times looks like it's competent. But then the other thing you have to imagine is that there'll be short fields and turnovers and maybe even defensive scores and all that because both of these quarterbacks are completely turnover prone right now as it is as well. So weird as it might seem, I might take a fairly strong look at the over here, Brett, even though both of these offenses certainly have not lit the world on fire because, hey man, I'm going to go ahead and set the over under at 2.5 turnovers in this game, and maybe maybe that's being light. Maybe it should be set at 3.5 turnovers in this game. And so I imagine at least these guys will get some short fields and maybe even some defensive scoring opportunities.
Well, if there's anything predictive, it's a Danny Dimes fumble. The guy's lost, I think, 7 fumbles already in his young career. So there's one. And yeah, you can probably bet on at least one from the Jets side as well, because that offensive line is going to have a hard time containing the Giants' defensive line.
Yeah, Darnold likes to throw the ball to the other team. He liked to do that in college as well. And shocker, he's doing it in the NFL too. I'm going to definitely keep an eye on that thing. Cardinals and Bucks. The Cardinals, 4.5-point dogs as they head to Tampa to take on this Bucks team that, look, you and I have talked about this a couple of different times. And guys, whenever you can go into some of these games, and this is not results based or whatever. This is kind of whenever we go in and we try to review our process and see, were we off base? How did we miss on things and whatever? And this Tampa Bay team is one of those teams that when you go in and look, they have won the game in the box score a couple of different times that didn't really show up on the field because of just a very weird or fluke turnover or whatever it might be, some sort of weird game occurrence. There was even a botched call in this in the repertoire here for this Bucks team as well that could have kind of flip-flopped this win, their record all in general here. And so this Bucks team, I think, Brett, is probably a little bit better than most people give it credit for because most people, one, don't watch all of the games every week like we do, and two, don't kind of comb through these box scores and kind of read through the play-by-plays and see how the games actually played out and see that sometimes a little bit of misfortune and sometimes a little bit of luck, and this Bucks team could probably have a couple more wins under their belt.
Absolutely. This is the second straight week the Bucs should have covered, but didn't, unless you got in early on the +6.5 last week against Seattle. Interesting matchup here against Kyler. Arizona doesn't like to run the football in neutral situations, and the Bucs are a top 5 run defense in the NFL. So the advantage there goes to Arizona. But like you said, there does appear to be some line value here after another spread loss for the Bucs. The look ahead here was Bucs -6.5, so there's a 1.5 right there. And I mean, if the Bucs did beat Seattle last week, or at least covered, wouldn't this just be like 6?
Right.
So I feel like there's a point, at least a point in line value that we're getting with the Bucs
look,
early.
The Cardinals, they got Patrick Peterson back, and the more he plays, the more he's going to get back in the swing of things. And if he does decide, and it is a likely case scenario that he's going to shadow Mike Evans the majority of the time. But one of the things about this Bucs offense that's kind of unique to the NFL is they actually have 2 extremely elite receivers, 2 top 20 receivers in the league, in my opinion, 1 top 5 guy, 1 top 20 guy in Godwin and Evans. And so if Mike Evans gets the Patrick Peterson treatment, I expect Mike Evans to win sometimes anyway, because he's just that good. I mean, he's so big, he's so physical, and he's so good on 50-50 balls that he's going to win sometimes anyway, Brett. But then the Bucs and Jameis actually have, let's say Mike Evans is, covered up a decent amount of the time. They have a pretty good second option that would be a number 1 option on a healthy amount of NFL teams.
Yeah, and I think I saw they might be getting O.J. Howard back this week as well. So while he has not been really a fixture in that passing offense yet, he has that upside as a guy who look at what tight ends have done against the Cardinals this year. Every single week. So if you can get a healthy O.J. Howard back, I think he makes a difference as well.
51.5 is the total in this one. One thing I think both of us can agree on, there will be points in this game, one way or another. So there's going to be points, whether we play the 51.5, yet to be determined. So be sure and listen in on the Lines podcast a little bit later in the week. Miami Dolphins, Indianapolis Colts. Colts down to their 3rd string quarterback now in Brian Hoyer. Dolphins, of course, go out and do the impossible, get a win this past week, which they probably should not have done because that dropped them a couple spots, because now the Jets are actually worse than they are due to the head-to-head here. 10.5 even showing up at FanDuel and over at PointsBet here. This Colts team, as I mentioned, Brett, going on with their 3rd string quarterback. That said, if you're going to a 3rd string quarterback, a lot of times you'll see, and we've even seen it in the NFL so far this year, because we've had a couple of teams have to do that. The Steelers, namely, one of those. Typically, you're going to some rookie that someone's never heard of, but the Colts are actually going to Brian Hoyer, who has a ton of experience and a ton of starts in the NFL in his career.
Yeah, I don't look at him as a 3rd string guy, like you said. I see this as a 2nd string quarterback, and it looks like we will get him this week. And the look ahead here was 15.5. Then the Colts lose. Brissett gets hurt. Miami finally gets a W. Now we're at 10.5. So maybe some line value with Hoyer here, unless you believe the Colts were being overvalued by the market, which I did. So this is a difficult one. It's a big number too. So I think this is probably one I'm going to throw away, given that I have not seen enough out of Hoyer. Plus T.Y. Hilton. This offense just looks dysfunctional without T.Y. in there. So this is going to be a throwaway for me, I think.
Total of 43.5 in this one. I guess the one thing, if you're an over player and you like playing overs, the one thing that you can love about Ryan Fitzpatrick under center for the Dolphins is he just YOLOs. He does not care. He pushes the ball downfield. They throw the ball way down. The only problem with that, Brett, and this is the reason why I feel like if this thing somehow moves under the 10, that you're going to see me, the Dolphins lost Preston Williams for the rest of the season. So one of those weapons that he was pushing the ball down the field to is now gone. And I think Preston Williams was under the radar, having one of the better seasons that nobody was talking about in the NFL.
Yeah, he's been great. The good thing is they do have a guy like Albert Wilson who can kind of slide in. He was awesome last year. He's been dealing with some injuries this year. So I think, him sliding in, there's not that much of a drop off, but losing Preston Williams, not great for the Dolphins.
Panthers and Packers. Panthers plus 4.5 on the road, heading over to Lambeau. 5.5, a whole point difference over at FanDuel right now. So if you are looking to back the Carolina Panthers, you would want to head over and grab this. I don't know how long that is going to stand. 4.5 across the rest of the market here, as you can see. Actually, in a lot of these, as you can see, juiced at 105 over on PointsBet, at least these opening lines anyway. So we see the Panthers come out, play really well, look really good. We see the Packers come out and lay a complete egg on, quote unquote, air quotes, on the road over there in LA, even though they had the majority of the fans in the stands. You hear Aaron Rodgers come out after the game and said, hey, maybe this was a good thing. We were kind of rolling along on cruise control, and maybe this will get these guys to reset a little bit. They did get Devontae Adams back, did not play much of a role in that game. Imagine another week of getting that toe rehabbed can only be good for this offense here. But, man, what can you really say about Kyle Allen? This guy has come in a situation that's not been very good. At least now he knows that he's going to continue to be the quarterback for this team. Drew, whenever you look, and Cam Newton went and had to get another foot specialist to take a look at his foot, and apparently he's not in any situation, in any condition to come back into this NFL situation anytime soon. So looks like Allen is your quarterback there for the Panthers for the time being. Pretty interesting game, maybe one of the other more interesting games of the week here, with Carolina getting, as we look right now, as much as 5.5 over on FanDuel.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what your perception of the Packers' loss in LA was. I mean, there were some rumors about the Packers players staying out late Saturday night in LA and not being fully prepared for the Chargers game, which is interesting because we looked at this game, like you said, as a neutral site game without any advantage to the home team. But maybe with teams from Wisconsin, we have to factor nightlife into team preparation. I don't know what to do with that, but a lot of line movement on this game early, and like you said, some discrepancy around the books, ranging from 4.5 to 5.5, depending on where you look. I imagine this will kind of go where it is at most books right now. It's at the 4.5, right?
Yeah, and 47 here as the total is pretty interesting, I think, as well. I probably expect this Packers offense to bounce back here. One of the things about this Panthers defense is it's kind of played this whole bend but don't break in a lot of their wins, but they haven't played and that's against the non-elite offenses. Whenever they played kind of some of these better offenses, those offenses have had some success against this Panthers defense here. It's not a small total by any stretch of the imagination there, Brett, at 47. But if you believe that the Packers offense bounces back, and of course we've talked at length in all of our previews about how this Packers defense has completely fallen off, where we thought that maybe they could be one of the better ones in the league the first month of the season, and now a complete opposite side of that here. If you think the Panthers have some success as well, this thing could kind of almost easily cruise past the 47 total here if you kind of believe that of a full bounce back here from the Packers.
Yeah, I'm looking at this matchup, and I don't know how the Packers contain Christian McCaffrey. He's been matchup proof all year. This is maybe his best matchup of the entire season with the way the Packers play defense. So I kind of like the over here as well.
Rams and the Steelers. Rams 3.5 point favorites on the road at the Steelers. Four is sitting out there right now at FanDuel as well. Of course, this Rams team coming off of a bye, so they should be dealing with a couple of their injuries, getting a little bit healthier. I think one of the things to point out here is it looks like Brandon Cooks might even be done for the season. He's having some real issues with concussion stuff, and so I think that there's at least a chance he might end up on IR before it's all said and done. That said, we've seen Josh Reynolds kind of come in and fill in, and this offense still have some success whenever he is in there as well. So, I mean, a loss for sure, but not kind of a debilitating loss. They still have Cooper Kupp. They still have Robert Woods. And then Josh Reynolds has played a ton for the Rams as well here. And, of course, the Steelers, a team that went in and got I'm not going to call it a fraudulent win. It was just some bad coaching there by the Colts at the end of the game that got this Steelers team home. But a win is a win. 3.5 point road favorites here are the Rams, Brett.
Yeah, like you said, extra rest for the Rams, and a Rams team that has not lost yet on the road this season. They're 4-0. It's very strange considering the overall lackluster performances that we've seen from this team. This is one of my favorite games of the week just from a football fan standpoint. I can't wait to see this Steelers pass rush against one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and you definitely have to factor that into this. But the Rams have certainly looked better, and the Steelers coming off a win. Very interesting, and then of course, with the hook as well. There's a lot to unpack with this one.
Yeah, this one is going to be one of the more interesting ones to kind of really dive into here. A total of 44 in this seems about right to me. Don't really have any sort of initial lean on that. Seems like a 21-20-ish game or a 27-20-ish game is certainly kind of right in that whole realm of possibilities here for me. So no initial lean on the total, but maybe something, maybe some news breaks, maybe some news comes out as that could lean us and shy us one way or the other. Of course, the Steelers played without James Conner this past week. There was at least some talk, Brett, that he might play in that game, and then of course ended up getting ruled out just real late in the week. So I think there's at least a better than average chance that the Steelers do get back James Conner this week as well.
Well, that's big because they need it. They had 0 rushing game against the Colts. I mean, the one, anything they did have was with Trey Edmonds, and now he's hurt as well. I mean, Jalen Samuels, what do you have? 8 carries for like 12 yards, and then he had 13 receptions, which I guess, you could just call an extension of the running game, but still, I mean, they don't have that guy who can just, get chunks on the ground without James Conner right now.
Vikings and the Cowboys. Vikings 3-point road dogs to the Cowboys. We see the Cowboys on Monday Night Football struggle at the beginning of the game, but then really get it going against the Giants. And no shock. I mean, they were never going to lose that game. The Giants were just playing a little bit above their head at the beginning of the game, and then the Giants that we figured would show up showed up, and that's how that thing ended up. The Vikings coming off a very, very disappointing loss to the Chiefs, where it looked like they were in control of that game and got a little bit conservative. And when you get a little bit conservative, you leave that door open, and they left the door open way, way too wide. The Chiefs were able to come back and win the game outright, even though the Vikings were favored in that game without Patrick Mahomes. Pretty interesting game here as well, Brett, because I think that maybe the Vikings getting 3 here is my initial lean. I think there might be a little bit of an overreaction here to what we saw with them and the Chiefs. I watched that game coast to coast. I had a lot of action on it, and 2, there was some DFS implications and all that were going on there. And really, it looked like the Vikings were going to cruise to victory against that Chiefs team. And then for whatever reason, they just decided to kind of turtle up in that game. And when they turtled up is when they just allowed that Chiefs team to come on back. I think another thing to mention here as well, Adam Thielen was active for this game for the Vikings, and he played all of like 6 or 7 plays and was back on the sideline and was done for the day. So probably you're looking at a Vikings team here that's not going to have Adam Thielen either.
Yeah, that's big. Important to note, of course, here the Cowboys are on short rest, but this Vikings team is one that I love to fade on the road. They're 2-3 away from home this year. And I mean, they do get to play at a dome on Sunday. That removes, I guess, some of the road disadvantage. But this line is telling me that the Vikings are just as good as the Cowboys, and I don't know. I'm not sure about that. When at full strength, I think I like the Cowboys a little bit more. So I think this line's pretty fair, but I think I would lean Cowboys a little bit, and I'm sure that's one we will talk about later in the week.
No, absolutely. It looks like this thing could get under 3, and at under 3, I definitely like the Cowboys in this situation. It's like I said, I mean, without Thielen, it's a completely different dynamic for this offense playing against good teams. We talked about that a little bit earlier when we were talking about the Bucs, how when you have there are very few teams that have 2 kind of 1A receivers, and the Vikings are one of those teams that roll out there, and there's not really a number 1 and a number 2. It's kind of 2 1As out there. And when you don't have that, we kind of saw that even with the Chiefs this past week. they were able to shut down Steph Diggs. There was a lot of kind of rolling coverage over Steph Diggs. Once Adam Thielen was out of the game, they just said, all right, well, hell, I mean, the only real threat here is Steph Diggs. And he caught a lot of double coverage in that game. And at that point, they had to try and win the game passing to Kyle Rudolph and Laquan Treadwell, and when that's the case, that's a pretty bad scenario there for the Vikings. So, yeah, I mean, if we kind of even get the slightest inkling Thielen's going to be out here, I probably will pounce on the Cowboys pretty quickly.
Yeah, agree. When you're getting targets to Laquan Treadwell, you've got a problem on offense. and BC Johnson, I don't know who these guys are. So if Thielen's out again, that's big.
And finally here, Seahawks and 49ers, probably the most anticipated Monday night game we have had in quite some time, and I will certainly be all over this one here. We are sitting at 6s at FanDuel and at PointsBet, and we do have 6.5 over there at DraftKings. Seahawks catching 6.5 on the road at the 49ers. Brett, you and I might be the worst two human beings on the face of the planet to cap this game because we have not been able to get the 49ers right so far this year at all. And
I've been terrible with the Seahawks.
In another scenario that my initial gut tells me seems like too many points, but I mean, what am I going to do? Am I going to for a 10th consecutive week doubt this 49ers team? I don't know.
Finally, I got one right last week. I did like the Cardinals quite a bit last week, but now you've got the 49ers with some extra rest. So I can see why this one has moved a point off the look ahead of 5.5, even though both teams did win last week. There's the Seahawks with their struggles against Tampa Bay. They got a fraud cover in that one. I mean, I mean, look, it's Tuesday, but I kind of love San Francisco right now. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, looking at a 46.5 total in this one. This one is actually fairly interesting to me where we've been leaning towards overs. This one kind of where it looks like I lean towards an under a bit in this thing. I mean, I think, and especially you probably would play this correlated if you're a 49ers backer in this one, you're probably loving the under in this thing as well. I mean, sitting at 46.5, if the 49ers win this game, then they're going to win the game controlling the ball on the ground and doing their thing with their run game and all the power football that they have been able to have so much success with so far this year. 46.5, a pretty high total here. I mean, I get it. The Seahawks have been putting up some points, but the Seahawks have not played this 49ers defense yet so far. So initial lean here certainly towards the under. And Brett, I imagine if this thing sticks at 6 and 6.5, this will probably be on a lot of people's teaser legs as well to try and close out some of the teasers that they open up on Sunday, getting this thing basically down to a pick for the 49ers. And all they've got to do is pull out a victory at home against the Seahawks team. But what are your initial thoughts on the total there? Sitting at 46.5 with what is, now after we've watched this Patriots team play against the Ravens, I think now no question the best defense in all of football.
Sure, and I agree with you about the correlation. If you like the Niners, I think you have to like the under, and that's definitely where I am right now. I've been wrong about these Niners matchups, or now the Seahawks matchups all year. This looks like it should be a pretty good matchup for the Seahawks against a run-heavy Niners offense, but I don't know. I mean, they've proven that they can be leaky against the run at times this year as well. So I definitely like this as a grindy Niners win that goes pretty far under the total a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, same with me. I mean, and we know for sure, we know what the Seahawks want to do. The Seahawks want to run the ball first and foremost as well. So despite the fact that Russell Wilson's playing at MVP level, they've got like two really, really good receivers and everything that they still want to run the ball probably far, far more than they should and probably to their detriment. So definitely like the under in that one as an initial lean too as well. Guys, as always, you can head over to thelines.com. You see right here on your screen, this article is posted for this week, or you can just head to where it says odds up here, click on live odds, and you can see all of the odds feeds here. We do have Jersey, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and West Virginia. You can toggle between money line, spread, and the total. And of course, you can click on these little icons up here if you're going to play, if you're going to bet at any of these sports books in these states. Take advantage of these industry best offers that are there on the lines. I mean, it is just way, way too easy to take a $500 risk-free bet or a $25 absolutely free at DraftKings, or you get another 100 free at PointsBet, stuff like that. Take advantage of these offers because these sports books have an advantage on us as we're paying juice to make these bets, guys. So if they're going to give us something for free, by all means, take the free. We certainly want to take any advantage we can get over the sports book. Brett, real quick, what can the people expect for week 10 as we head into the lines and play picks this week?
A lot of the same kind of stuff. I think we're going to dig into player props a little more this week. We're going to put Fairway J to work and focus on a lot of the player props that you can find. But yeah, a lot of how the markets are moving and some trends that you definitely want to have a laugh at that you're seeing across the industry this week.
And of course, all of this other stuff, guys, you're going to be looking at the big college game this week as well. Number 1 versus number 2. And as the NBA season continues to roll on, tons of stuff over there for the lines with that as well. As always, please subscribe to the page. Everything at the lines is free. Everything's at Play Picks is free. Everything, of course, on the YouTube channel is free as well. So subscribe to the channel. You'll be the first to know when things pop up, and let us know in the comments. Do any of those lines or totals stick out to you? Is there anything you've already jumped on as well? Because we are pretty curious as to what you guys are going to be playing here in week 10 as we roll into the meat of the NFL season. I cannot believe we are already here, Brett. It is almost depressing. I will say it's almost depressing.
Yeah, I'm sad. I mean, this is we hit this point every single year. It's like, where did half the football season go?
Appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back for Thursday Night Football. For Brett, I'm Matt. Talk to you then.